What if the United States isn't escalating conflict in the Middle East by choice, but by trap? What if every move, every sanction, every strike, every warning isn't strengthening control, but tightening a strategic knot that's getting harder to escape? According to Robert Pape, one of America's most influential war strategists, that's exactly what's happening. A man who has advised leaders in the White House since the aftermath of September 11th attacks is now raising concerns about a dangerous shift, one that could reshape global power. This is the story of how the United States, under Donald Trump, became entangled in a conflict with Iran, why the risk of nuclear escalation is rising, how China is quietly influencing the outcome, and why America may be losing its grip on the Middle East. Who is Robert Pape? Before diving into the conflict, it's important to understand the man behind the warning. Robert Pape is not a commentator chasing headlines. He is a strategist, a researcher, and the director of the Chicago Project on Security and Threats. His work focuses on one critical question: what actually works in war? In his influential book, Bombing to Win: Air Power and Coercion in War, Pape challenged long-held assumptions about military dominance. He argued that raw force, especially air power, does not guarantee political success. That idea alone reshaped how policymakers think about war. And now, he's applying that same lens to the growing tension between the United States and Iran. How Trump got trapped. At first glance, the conflict seems straightforward. The U.S. pressures Iran, Iran resists, tensions rise. But Pape argues the reality is far more complex and far more dangerous. Under Donald Trump, the U.S. withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, a deal designed to limit Iran's nuclear capabilities. The goal? Force Iran into a better agreement. But instead of backing down, Iran adapted. They didn't collapse economically. They didn't surrender politically. They recalibrated. And that's where the trap begins, because once pressure increases, backing down becomes politically costly. If the U.S. escalates and Iran resists, Washington faces two choices. 1. Escalate further, or 2. Appear weak. This is what strategists call commitment entrapment, a situation where initial actions lock a country into a path that's difficult to reverse. Pape's warning is simple but powerful. The U.S. isn't just confronting Iran anymore. It's reacting to a dynamic it helped create. Iran's strategy: patience over power. Unlike the U.S., Iran doesn't need to win quickly. They just need to endure. Iran's strategy is built on asymmetric warfare, leveraging time, geography, and regional alliances. Instead of direct confrontation, Iran uses proxy forces, economic resilience, and strategic patience. This approach shifts the battlefield. It's no longer about tanks and missiles alone. It's about influence. And over time, this strategy erodes U.S. leverage. Because while America spends resources to maintain pressure, Iran spreads influence quietly across the region. The nuclear breakout risk. Now comes the most dangerous part. As tensions rise, so does the risk of what experts call a nuclear breakout. A nuclear breakout isn't just about building a bomb. It's about reaching the point where a country can build one, quickly. By leaving the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the U.S. removed key restrictions on Iran's nuclear program. And without those limits, Iran gained room to accelerate. Pape highlights a critical shift. Pressure meant to stop nuclear development may actually be accelerating it. Why? Because from Iran's perspective, nuclear capability becomes a form of insurance. If they believe regime survival is at risk, the incentive to develop nuclear weapons increases, not decreases. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. More pressure, more nuclear progress. More nuclear progress, more pressure, and the cycle continues. China's quiet role. While the US and Iran dominate headlines, another player is shaping the outcome from the background: China. China's strategy is not loud, but it's effective. Instead of military intervention, China focuses on economic partnerships, energy agreements, and diplomatic positioning. Iran becomes a key piece in China's long-term global strategy. Why? Because access to Middle Eastern energy and influence strengthens China's position against the US. And here's the critical point. As the US isolates Iran, China steps in to fill the gap. This weakens the effectiveness of American sanctions and reduces US leverage. In other words, the more the US pushes Iran away, the closer Iran moves toward China. Losing control of the Middle East. For decades, the United States maintained a dominant role in the Middle East, but that dominance is changing. Pape argues that control is not lost in a single moment. It erodes gradually, and we're seeing that erosion now. Several factors contribute to this shift: reduced trust among regional allies, increasing independence of Middle Eastern states, and growing influence of rivals like China. Countries in a region are no longer aligning automatically with Washington. Instead, they're hedging, balancing relationships between major powers. This creates a new reality. The US is no longer the uncontested power in the Middle East. At the heart of Pape's analysis is a key idea. Military and economic pressure do not always produce political compliance. In fact, they often produce resistance. This is the central argument of bombing to win, air power and coercion in war. When a nation feels threatened, it adapts, not collapses. And that adaptation can lead to outcomes opposite of what policymakers intend. In the case of Iran, pressure strengthened hardline positions. Isolation encouraged alternative alliances. Escalation increased nuclear incentives. What was meant to weaken Iran may have made it more resilient. So, where does this lead? Pape outlines a few possible futures. 1. Continued escalation. Tensions rise, leading to military confrontation. 2. Nuclear threshold. Iran reaches breakout capability, shifting the balance of power. And 3. Strategic realignment. China and other powers gain influence as US control declines. None of these outcomes are simple, and none of them are risk-free. The bigger picture. This isn't just about Iran, it's about how power works in the modern world. The old model, where military dominance guaranteed control, is fading. Today, influence is more complex. Economic networks, political resilience, and strategic alliances. And in this new environment, even the most powerful nations can find themselves constrained. That's the paradox Pape is pointing to. Strength, when applied incorrectly, can create weakness. So the question isn't just whether the United States can win a conflict with Iran. The question is whether it understands the nature of the conflict it's in. Because as Robert Pape suggests, the real danger isn't just war, it's being trapped in a strategy that no longer works. And if that's true, then the future of the Middle East and the balance of global power may already be shifting. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into global strategy, power, and the forces shaping our world.